there any other questions before we move on? Okay, so yeah, this will work only if that data folder is there at the same level as our lessons folder, and the woodchuck is inside there. Okay, so if we're using file handles like this, the best way to read in a file is using this with command. The reason we use this with block is that instead of having to open this file handle, read the data, and then close the file handle, it's kind of annoying. You gotta remember to close it after you open it. You can use this with command. So this creates a block. So everything below the with is indented. And as we'll see in Python, indentation matters. Indentation is how you tell the computer what you're doing. So you have a with block, and then everything in that is indented, and then here I actually have a for statement. We'll cover all this kind of stuff later. But the main thing I want you to see is that when you can get the information in different ways. So if we run this command, we're going to open that file name to read. So we've kind of omitted this R part, but this means read. And then we're going to save that as the file handle, or text IO wrapper is going to be called F. And then we're going to say for each line in F, we're going to strip that new line character. Remember we saw this R strip last time. This strips white space at the end of a string, and then print the line. And so that we get the new lines anyway because print adds a new line to each line when it prints it. We're gonna do something similar here, but instead of going through each line using a for loop, we can just print f dot read, and it will just print the. It's basically the same content that we had here. It's just printing this thing. So it's doing the same thing here, but we don't have to open and close it. We just open it inside the with block, and then we don't have to close it when we're done. When the with block exits, it automatically will close. Similarly, we can do read line or read lines. It's the same idea. Everything is the same except we're doing it inside this with block, and when the with block closes, it automatically closes the handle. Can you combine things like f.rstrip.readlines? That particular one wouldn't work because rstrip is a method for strings. And so you can't do read lines on a. So read lines or read line are methods of these text IO wrappers. So
for example, if you have the list there and you want to script the new line, is there a way to do it? Or you just have to do it kind of like a loop or something?
yeah, you could do it as a loop. But you could, yeah, you could do it as a loop. Yeah, there's different ways. Yeah, so in practice, for a lot of, yeah, it depends. Yeah, I think for a lot of data applications, you're going to do this next thing, which is use pandas. So pandas has a function called read CSV, or comma separated values. Now this is not a CSV file; it's just a text file, but it's basically effectively a CSV file with only one column. So if we read that, so we do up above we imported pandas, and so we imported pandas. Let's go back and see what we did. Oh, we didn't. So we're going to need to execute this cell. If you didn't, I skipped that over. execute this one for good measure. So up at the beginning here, or at the beginning of this section, we have this import pandas as PD. So what this does is it imports this package called pandas, but it renames it PD. So anytime we type PD, what we really mean is pandas. So we're going to go down to the here, and we're going to say PD, and that pandas package has a method called readCSV. We're going to pass that a file name and say header equals none. We're going to talk all about this function readCSV when we talk about pandas. This is just kind of a preview. But what this will do, and we're going to save this as a variable called df, which stands for data frame. That's just the name we're giving it. We could call it Bob or Phil or whatever. But you can see now it's created a table that has these 3 lines. Now, if this is not the best format for a text file like this, but you can imagine for certain data files, etc., just reading it as a CSV file is another way to do it. So next up, we have writing files. So if we wanted to write a file, first we can specify the name of the file. And this is just going to be the name of the file itself. We could specify the path, but in this case, we're just going to save it to our current directory. And now we're going to write some lines. So rather, we're going to save some strings to variables, and then we're going to write those to a file. So just like when we open a file name or file handle to read, we're going to open a file handle to write. So instead of using an R, and again, if you open that file handle without anything, it'll just assume that it's read. But here we need to specify we want to open that file to write, to put stuff to it. So we're going to say target, and this is just a variable name that we can call it anything, but we'll call it target because it's the target that we're going to write to. So we're going to say target equals open out file W for write, and then that target variable now has a method called write where we can write things to it. So we just say, this is kind of analogous to printing. Instead of saying print, which will print to your screen, we're going to write to a file, which is more powerful because it's not just showing up on the screen, it's actually going to a file, which you can then use for something else. So we're going to write line 1 and then a new line, and then we're going to write line 2 and then a new line, and then we're going to write line 3 and then a new line, and then close. So if I hit Shift Enter, it's going to do that whole thing, and then let's just see what kind of file that target thing is. So it's another text IO wrapper. Okay, now where did that file go? So this should be in our lessons folder, right? Because we said it's here. So if we go back to our terminal, we're going to go to lessons. So this is now, I'm still in data, so I need to go cd ... to go up 1, and then / lessons to go back down into lessons. Remember the diagram we drew over there. So now if I do ls, I've got all this stuff in there, but now I have this file called limerick.txt. So if I just want to look at that file, I could just type cat limerick, and I can see now I've created this new file that has this text that was specified in the notebook. And you can see that it interpreted the new lines as new lines. So when I print the file, I see that it has 5 lines because it has the 3 lines here plus this new line in the middle here and this new line in the middle here. Now, we can do the same thing that we did with opening using a with block. So we can, just like in open, we can use with to open, and then we don't have to close it when we're done. It's very handy. We can do write to a file using this with block to simplify our lives. So we just say with open as target, target.write line 1, line 2, line 3, etc. The same thing we did before. And so if we go back, we can see I did ls-l, which shows me the time. So you can see, indeed, that limerick.txt is updated. I just, it's 11:57 right now. It's just created that new file. Similarly, Pandas has a way to save files. And when we're dealing with data type files or tab delimited or comma delimited type tables, we can use the data frame object to create CSV files. So we have this file up here called df, or this table up here, this data frame called df. We're going to go down here and save that df to a CSV file. So we're going to execute this cell. And we can go back, and if I do ls lrt, that will list in long format, reverse by time. So now you can see I have this woodchuck pandas.csv. So if I look at that, you can see it's now that same information, but in like a tabular format, in a comma separated values. If I want to save that as a tab separated values or TSV, I can still use this toCSV function, but I just specify the separator, sep equals \t, so this tab character. So now if I look at that, I can do cat woodchuck.tsv, and it's the same basic file, but it's using tabs instead of commas. Again, we're going to spend a lot of time with pandas in this class, so this is just a little preview.